Okay, so we're talking about the military and everything like that, because Max is just annoyed by a few things. So hopefully this will be quick, but okay, so, okay, let's figure out where to start. Okay, so, Max failed ISEP test, I failed math. And to be able to graduate and everything, I had to retake it, still failed it. So, and it was geometry. I don't fucking get geometry, it didn't make sense. I sucked at it, and then after that we learned algebra, and it was so much easier compared to geometry. I was like, why the fuck do I learn shapes? I don't understand. I already know what the shapes are called, for the most part. I don't fucking need to know. There's no use for this. No use. I have zero understanding of this. And I was like, oh, I can, like, maybe do a few of the basic sides, and maybe know, like, what it's called if it has, like, two of the same sides, or all the same sides, same length of sides. Okay, yeah. So we had to then take a military standard test, and also learn that you have to graduate. You can no longer be a high school dropout. The new standard is you have to have passed military. You have to have passed high school. You have to be able to graduate high school to join the military. Because otherwise, most people are like, oh, I like dropped out so I can join the military and stuff like that. Apparently, not allowed. At least that was what we were told. Yeah. And anyway, I passed it, and apparently I got like highish marks on it. But apparently they wanted me to join the military, and I didn't. They were like, oh, I might have filled some stuff out, but I didn't check the moment of being like, oh, contact me, I'm interested. I said, no, you can't contact me. But I was like, I'm just filling out questions on a test. It's a standard test, so they want all your information, and everything like that. So you fill it out, and then they're like, no, you can't talk to me about the military. And then they kept contacting my father, and they kept wanting me to join. And I was like, technically, it's illegal, especially since I just changed my name and everything. And I've been out for a couple years, because of Trump's rule, and I just looked it up. I was like, Trump's bill against trans military. That's what I looked up, and it popped up, so it worked out. Breaking down Trump's trans military ban. That's 2018. Apparently, after I didn't know this, 4 separate courts blocked the Trump administration's ban on transgender people serving in the military. The White Parents announced a new law. Trump's controversial military policy goes into effect. That was in 2019, and that was before I graduated. I graduated in 2021, so it had already been in effect for like 2 years. Friday marks the first day, and that was April 12th, 2019. NBC News. Friday marks the first day of Trump's administration controversial policy restricting transgender military service. He tried to get everybody who's trans kicked out of the military, but he couldn't do that. They prevented that. But if you're trans, you can't join the. Yeah, Trump banned transgender troops from openly serving, but courts put a ban on hold until now. President Trump has never considered LGBT Americans second-class citizens and has opposed discrimination against them. New York Times, that sounds like bullshit. It sounds like something he said. Yeah, but you made this bill. Donald Trump a victory in his effort to ban most transgender people from the military. Federal court today granted American Civil Union's request for a complete halt in practice of. I don't know what this was. The President's directive. We ban transgender people from serving in the military. That's what it says. Yeah, so I'm not allowed to serve, and I didn't want to serve, and they're trying to make me go into the military, and they kept talking to my dad, and they're like, yeah. I know my dad was in the Air Force, but he never talks about it, and then the one time for an assignment, he talked my sister's ear off about it, and then we're like, oh. And then my siblings were like, oh, he probably has, like, PTSD from it, and I was like, because he never talks about it. But he served it, and with his brother and crap like that. He served in the Vietnam War in the Air Force. Yeah, he's old. He would be 76. He would be around 76. So he was like 74 when he died. So, yeah. After the bastard's dead. But, yeah. And I was like, yeah, you had PTSD, so you had to give me it? Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, no. But then he wanted me to join the military, and I was like, yeah, that's not fucking happening. I was like, they can't fucking make me join. They can't force me. It's legal. It's legal for me to be in the military. One of my friends, though, did actually want to be in the military, probably because it was the only way to escape it, because they're like, yeah, I'm not going to go to, like, high school, I'm not going to go to college, because it's expensive, and I don't have, like, a scholarship and crap like that, and I also don't think I need to go to college, because I just want to be a tattoo artist. That's what they wanted to be. Okay, X is now an L, but yeah, by the time they were X. But my friend X wanted to be a tattoo artist and everything like that, and they wanted to go to the military because they wanted to escape their home, and they had an okay relationship with their father. It wasn't as bad as their mother, and their father had served in the military for a long time. He was also older, but I don't think maybe quite as old as my dad, and then he had, like, a cane and everything, But yeah, so he wanted to go to the military, but he was also trans like me, so it was no longer allowed, and he's like, fuck, this ruins my plan. He didn't say that exactly, but yeah. So it sucked for him, but I was kind of happy about the band, because I was like, I never wanted to go into the military. I kind of thought it was a cool idea, mostly a little bit just like a slight thought ever of copying my sister, because she wanted to go into the Marines for a while. She wanted to go in the Marines, and then she just became a EMT. I think she still is. Yeah, she went to school and everything, and she became an EMT. And then she had that idea on a while, and it's something she thought about wanting to do. I don't know how serious it was, and you're like, if she was really serious, then maybe she would have like actually joined. I don't know. I just know she like wrote it in a lot of journals, and she talked about it for a little while, and it was just something she thought about it, and she wanted for a while. But yeah, I was never one of those people, and no one else in our family was one of those people, and they didn't want to join the military, and none of them did. So yeah, they kept bothering me, and because they kept bothering my father, and then my father kept calling me and bothering me. And I'm like, that's not how this works. They're not allowed to do that. And the government knows that I've changed my name and everything because I did it before I graduated, and they keep contacting me even after I graduated. And I legally changed my gender and my name, and they're still trying to talk to me. Yeah, no. Yeah, no. That's not how that works. The government clearly not trying to be in denial about it like my parents. Yeah, so yeah, that was illegal. Yeah. So Max is just annoyed and does it down 100% as like military. I'm like, fuck no. And now, like online and everything, they're trying to just advertise it as a job. And then I was following, well, I wasn't really following someone. It's been popping up my feed and whatever. Because there was like this funny one where they were talking about how like Russia and like China will like talk a big game or whatever, and they were talking about how they could like totally take America. America was like, bitch, please. They're like, we can get our apparently. I just remembered recent TikTok was talking about it again. Except they didn't have like the funny voices and just like the mouth and the eyes and the nose, talking in front of the picture of the country. They had like someone who claimed they were in the military, and he talked about other videos and stuff like that, and talking about complaining about how they're really good at trauma bonding, and how you're mentally always fucked up and everything, and military just sucks, and how they're advertising like pay and everything, and like retirement, they're advertising all these things, but it's really not worth it, and the pay's not worth what you're doing in the job anyway, and it's not worth and it will not cover like VA, and I've heard this before, a lot of complaints about VA not covering surgery, not things, not covering and not getting money, and having to wait years and everything for disability to kick in because you served in the military. Everybody dragging their asses and not helping you and not doing their job, and not helping you whatsoever, and it just being suck, and military just equals mental problems at the very least, if not health problems as well. I was with one guy, he'd only like served like 2 or maybe 4 years in the military, and he's like, yeah, maybe if I stay longer I could have become like a lieutenant and everything, but I didn't, because if I stay longer then I would like, my body would be even more fucked up. I wouldn't just have a bunch of hearing loss like I do now. I would have, where I'm almost like completely deaf. Oh yeah, and then my dad was basically deaf, he had hearings and everything. Yeah, he didn't have a cane, but he was basically deaf. So yeah, he had hearing aids and everything like that. But yeah, they don't help with anything, and I really doubt that. Oh yeah, I don't think he used it a lot of the time, and they're probably really old for the most part, because my dad always said that you couldn't hear because I'm pretty sure the VA didn't cover it. They didn't want to cover it, even though the government caused it, and they won't want to pay for it now. Yeah, so just like a lot of complaints about that. But no, yeah, trying to make me join the fucking military. Never gonna happen, and they legally can't. And then now, especially since there's no war and everything, they can no longer draft people. So they're just asking for volunteers and everything like that, and so they're trying to advertise it as a job. Even though we already have a ton of people in the military, and I'm like, we don't need a military, and we're just trying to police and getting involved with all the other countries' affairs for like no apparent reason. But yeah, the whole mouth and everything, they were talking about that. The thing I remembered, and I think something I forgot, was they were like, hey, they're like, because like China, they're like, hey, our military could totally take out your military because we just have more people. But they're like, that doesn't work because we are more efficient and more effective and more disciplined, and we can actually work as a team. And I was like, the sergeants will treat them like shit, and they hate the sergeant. And that was really funny because, like, he was talking about how soldiers, and he's like, my best friend is someone that we absolutely hated each other, but then we became best friends, and we, like, love each other because we hated our sergeant because he treated us like shit. because he treated us less than a human being. I treated always telling you that you're trash and worthless, and I was like, well, this is shit I heard from my dad growing up. You're just gonna be bullied and shit? Yeah, no. I was like, you're being paid to be bullied and beaten the shit out of. Yeah, I know. The pay is not enough. Yeah. And they can just get another job that doesn't, where they're not treated like shit and they're not beaten up, and they'd earn more money, and they'd have better treatment, and they would have healthcare and all this crap. Yeah. But yeah, and then, like, Russia, their thing was like, oh, we have more, like, aircraft, we have better, like, air, I don't know what it's called. I was like, it's not air rifles, but air militia, something. They have more weapons for attacking people in the air and more, like, radar and stuff like that. They're like, oh, we have more weapons that are long range and everything like that, so we can totally take you out. But then his thing was, he's like, we're the U.S. military, and we can touch down and have soldiers and our military down on the ground in that location, in any location in the entire world in 24 hours. And I was also thinking, and they were like, also, I think that was their backup plan, because they were most likely, because they're, okay, so for the first one, they were like, we have more people, and they were like, but you don't have more people who are more effective, more efficient, and have better equipment. And then that was against China, and then Russia was like, oh, but we have better weapons that are long range that can fight aircraft or whatever. And they're like, but we have better airplanes, we have better bombs, we have more airplanes, we have better air force that can just take you out. And then they were like, if North Korea and Iraq teamed up and they fought against you, they're like, we could totally take you. And then they were like, hey, we can totally touch down in 24 hours, we can be anywhere in the world. And then I was also thinking, I was like, hey, you already have military personnel and you have bases basically almost everywhere in the entire world. So when they're not policing, the military is still policing because it still has people. And even if they withdraw, they still leave people behind. Oh, and then there was later on this other funny thing where they were talking about how they left some Marines on this island. And how they were like, they don't need backup, and they don't need, like, supervision, and then we're just going to look away and let them do whatever the hell they want. And they can totally take out the guerrillas and the warlords that are in the area that the Nokos and the tribe people, they were all complaining about. They were talking about how it was a big issue, and they're like, we have Marines down there, and they're like, yeah, they're nuts, they're crazy, because they don't have any weights or anything to work out with, so they're just lifting giant rocks and benching out with nature and all that crap. And then I was like, yeah, and then there was, so I was like, yeah, they can totally take them. And then there was this really funny one that I really liked. And then they were like, I don't remember what it's called, like the UN, it was like United Nations, they were calling it like another group now. They were talking about how they're together and everything, and they were talking about how like America is basically just a war tribe, and I was like, that's accurate. They just want to fight everyone. It's clearly why they're just sending all of our military is just out of the country, and always building it up and training it and spending so much money on it. Or just always wanted to fight people. And I was like, also, if you look at their soldiers and everything and I thought it was really funny, because they were complaining everything, because there was a pilot, and he was, like, going to go rogue and everything, and he was going to, he said, in the skit and everything, he said that, I'm going to win World War III, and he's like, no, nobody, we don't want that, we don't, yeah, because, like, World War III hasn't started yet, and he's like, no, I'm going to end it before it starts, going to take everyone out. He was on a mission, and then they, like, bribed him a little bit, and they had to really work on it, and they were, like, they provided him with health insurance and all these benefits and everything like that, to make him go back home and to not attack people and not fulfill the mission of bombing people, because he was already on his way. He's like, I'm going! Yeah, and I was like, that sounds accurate, especially more and more what I heard with other skits. I was like, you traumatize and you treat your soldiers like shit, and you train them, so they're really strong, and they're really good, and they're trauma bonded, so they work together forever. And then also, the whole deal with, like, before and everything, they're like, oh, you go into the military, like, to protect your friends and your loved ones. I was like, it's more than that, it's to, like, protect, like, you, it was before, it was, like, originally, like, in World War I, we only got involved because they involved our country. In World War II, we only started it because Japan blew up all of our ships. Yeah, and there was a funny thing that Japan was talking about, because, like, Russia, apparently they're talking about how Russia threatened Americans' Navy, and they were like, nope, we're checking you out now. You fucking talking shit? You don't fucking touch our boats. And Japan's like, we learned that the hard way. We touched the boats and they came after us. It was really funny. I just thought it's funny, it's really funny. So I'm just mostly just talking about funny skits now. But yeah. And he's talking about how, like, sergeants and everybody, they treat you like less than a human, they degrade you, and you feel like total shit. But you're trauma bonded, and you hate your officer and everything like that. But I was like, they really do gotta send our military away from our country, though. They really gotta send them as far away as possible. And they always gotta point, because they're building a military, and it's a pointed gun. But since you treat them like shit, it's pointed at the government, it's pointed at the system. The military is pointed at the system. It's pointed at the U.S. So they're like, no, we're gonna point you away from the U.S. We're gonna throw you in another country and point you that way, and let you go crazy and relieve all your stress and trauma that we keep giving you. Just take all the anger and violence you feel inside and express it outwards towards the enemy. We'll point you in the right direction and let you go wild. We will ignore, we will deny, and we will not see anything you do, so you can be free and as violent and crazy as you want to be. But yeah, you made that. And I was like, when there are no more enemies, and when people, and if they keep going down this road of treating the soldiers like shit, the soldiers are all going to bound together and be like, you know what, fuck this. We know how to use this military. We can just take over, we can take out our officers, and we can take out the people who are in charge of the military, and then since we took out everyone who's in charge of the military, now we are in charge, and now we can take out the government and we can rule with an iron fist. They can just take over the entire country. Because they keep treating them like shit. We need to treat our soldiers better and stop making as many new soldiers and shit like that. Yeah, no. Yeah. And also didn't make any sense because I was like, you're giving all these people who have all these issues, who are more violent, who are like in juvie and like all these criminals, it seems like, and all these people who are more violent and everything and have anger issues and who are already more violent and want to attack people, you're giving them more weapons and you're teaching them how to better kill people and better hurt people. That doesn't seem right. But you're making them worse, really. You'd be like, oh, they're already bad, so let's, like, use them. Let's, like, train them and point them somewhere else and have them do something. It seems like a nice idea, but you're making them worse, and you're not fixing any of their issues. And what happens when they come back home? Well, when they have to stop, when they're no longer pointed at the enemy, yeah, they're going to point right back at you. They're not going to be able to go, and then, oh, when they retire, they go back to normal society, they're not going to be able to handle that shit. They're going to use what you taught them, and if they weren't a good person before that, and then you made it worse, they're just going to use it against normal civilians. In that sense, that behavior was taught as good and reinforced and taught, but they're like, oh, suddenly it's a bad thing, only because it's against us, and it's our own people, and not so against someone else. Okay, I have a lot of complaints, and also, like, government's always like, oh, we're short of funds and everything like that. I was like, it's because you spend all of your money on the military, and we're not fighting any goddamn war. There is no war we're involved in, there's no war we're fighting, and we haven't been fighting in any wars, and we never need to be involved in the Vietnam War, and all the soldiers complained about it, and they didn't want to be involved. And I was like, even like the Korean War or whatever, and any of the wars we weren't involved in, the last war we were supposed to be involved in, and we had to be involved in, was World War II, and that was it. There was supposed to be no wars after that. And then you did other shit, involved other places, and they're like, oh, send a little bit here, and keep helps a little bit here. Or just go back to, like, oh, just sending a little bit, like, of our old equipment that I heard about. That they're sending our old equipment, that we already have a lot of equipment. There's also something I also learned, because someone was talking about in the military, like, we have a bunch of old equipment that we're not using, and we're still making new, better equipment, and for the most part, it's sitting, and it costs more to maintain than to actually use, so I was like, it sounds like they're also just giving it away for free, and I was like, no, I think you should be selling it like you did in World War I and World War II. What you did to the Union and to Britain and everything, they're like, hey, we're going to make it a little bit cheaper because you really need it, but you're still going to pay a fee to use, to let us, for our supplies, for us to give you military equipment, to give you boats, to give you shits, to send you guns, send you bombs, all this. I was like, we can still continue doing that, and I was like, I think the military should go back to that. They're like, oh yeah, a little bit more hands up, sending a little bit more backup, sure, okay, that's fine, but not as involved as they are, and they definitely don't as much money as they are sending. There's just trillions, and they're trillions of the budget just every fucking year. And I'm like, the military never ran out of money in the first place. Maybe they got close to it because of, like, the Depression and everything in World War I and World War II, but then after that, and after the economy recovered, you're like, oh, stock up for a few years, but it's been hundreds of years, I think so, anyway. And every year you put at least $1 million, I'm pretty sure at least $1 million. I don't know, I don't look at the data. I remember one time they were talking about how much money there was, but they're like, oh, this much for, like, there are always more than all the other branches, always more towards the military. And I was like, we don't need that much for the military. It can be a lot less. Especially since you put that much towards the military last year. Put that much of the percentage of the budget towards the military last year. So you can use a little bit more of that money for other areas. And maybe they could actually use a little bit more of that money to better treat their soldiers. And they would actually dive a little bit deeper into their budget and not just use it all on more equipment and making more bombs and stuff like that. And then they would also get more money if they started just a little bit more selling. They're just selling their old equipment. And they'd sell more of it. They'd be like, hey, your government wants more money, wants more it needs more weapons, and it wants more military support. How do you pay me? Give me some money. We run out of money. Yeah, okay. So that's my idea. Especially since, like, they're like, oh, we don't have enough money to, like, help people and support more people and help the poor people and, like, cover health insurance for, like, Americans. And I was like, you could use Medicaid for a lot more people and everything. And not just on the lowest of the low, the lowest of the poor section. Especially since I just read a section and they were like, oh, you're the poorest of poor, like, down here, if you don't make $22,000. And then you're still, like, in that bracket if you make, like, a little bit more of that. You're still like, oh, maybe in, like, the second group of the poorest. The poverty level. Oh, yeah, poverty level. They're, like, the lowest poverty level, and then the second poverty level, and then the third poverty level. And Max was in the lowest, because Max wasn't making any money, and then Max got a job and was working a little bit, but I only worked for a little bit, so I was still in the lowest area. And then I actually worked for a long time, and I was finally, like, in the second bracket, and then we got into the third bracket, but I'm still in the poverty line. And apparently there are, like, 4, so there's even another one be above that. There's another range where you're still in the poverty line. Yeah. Max made, like, only 30,000, maybe. Before that we made, like, maybe 22,000 or something like that. I'm pretty sure we made less than, like, 25,000. Yeah. And this job pays better, so we got, like, the 30,000, but we didn't. Yeah. It's still in the poverty line, so yeah, we're still poor. And they're like, yeah, all of that is now towards medical bills and everything like that, because they stopped covering it when I made, like, a little bit over the 22,000. A little bit over the 25,000, whatever. Right around the range. Then they stopped covering me, and they're like, yeah, you gotta pay, it was, like, 260 or, like, 56 per month for health insurance. That's what it was this year. And then since I want to try and make them cover a little bit more, now it's $300 a month. And then I also still have to pay around, like, $100 a month for car insurance. And then I still gotta pay for gas, and I still gotta pay for medications and hospital visits and stuff like that. So, yeah. And then I'm not really paying for food, but if I did, and I do pay for food, and a little bit I do pay for food because I'm like, there's no food, so I have to go out to eat and get something. So, yeah. And the rest of it, we're just trying to save up to, and then we spent quite a bit of it on a car, trying to save up to, the cars cost the same as, like, a fucking house now, even more. It's $25,000. You can get, like, maybe a little bit underneath that, but my car was absolute shit, and it was over $5,000, and I'm just trying to make it last as long as it can, and with, like, and then I had to get 2,000 repairs, and then a couple, like, 500, or almost, like, 1,000 elsewhere, so, yeah, it cost me, over 7,000, over 7,100, so it's closer to, like, 8,000. For a piece of shit car that has, and I've only had it for barely just now a year. Yeah, it's just great. And so all my money disappears, so I have no money. And then I have to pay, like, yeah, it's cheaper because my parents, I'm still paying I'm giving people money for groceries that, for the most part, I don't eat. I do eat cereal bars. I forgot to include that in a different video. Mostly just rambling. And then I have to pay a lot for, I still have to pay a little bit over $250 a month for renting out my room, for living here with the other people. And then, like, the 60, like, 70, or the 50 or 30, it changes for the food. Yep. So Max doesn't have any money, and is just trying to save everything into savings, because they're trying to move out and not live in here anymore. And then I was also like, I can't buy a car anytime soon, because it's like either you choose a car, or it's also definitely going to be like 8,000 once I have to pay to get a new light, and have to fix the crack in my windshield. So I've been there since I bought it. Yeah. Fun. Yeah, it's just great. My car is a piece of shit, like normal. Yeah. But, so yeah, I'm just trying to saving up to move the fuck out. And then also when I move, then after a while, hopefully when I get a better job, hopefully maybe they also pay me a lot of money. You always need a lot of money to do anything. Then you can just, then you can save up for a new car. That's an absolute piece of shit. It'll probably be like 7,000 or 8,000. So what I had to pay for the car and repairs, so I don't have to actually fucking repair it and it doesn't fall apart. And hopefully actually last for a while. Okay, sorry, mostly just complaining about my car at the end. But, yeah, we're a fucking wreck, as always. I'm playing with my hair. Remember to suck? Okay, we talked about the military and shit. I think this should be the last video. Whatever, bye.